Welcome, everyone. We are the Review360 team, and there's several others that are on the team. But today, the four of us who basically are the frontline supporters of Review360 implementation, we really wanted to give this opportunity to really kind of share, what we feel like is important and how to really increase the implementation of Review360. We always get lots of questions. We're inundated with, how do we use this support tool better? So we love that question. And so we thought for this year we would have a series, basically 5 sessions on various aspects of Review360. So the four of us are going to basically unfold some of these things you guys might have already, been aware of, and that's okay. What we want to do is just kind of talk a little bit about, how people are using this and how they've increased, building their support framework and so on and so forth. So that's really what today's going to be about. We're going to end with questions. So you can chat if you want, but you can also hold that question till later. If we feel like it's a specific question, we're just going to write it down and make a note of your name and district, and then we will reach out to you individually. So don't feel like that we can't answer individual questions. We'll either answer it as a whole, or we'll go in and reach out with you after the webinar. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started. So if you're one of the few that have not started, just know that you're not alone in thinking that the new school year is back. I know that my wife, she started this week, and Sunday night she gave me a big long hug and just said, I'm going back into it. It's teaching's hard, supporting teachers is hard, and just education in general. So we understand that where everybody's at, and which is why we love to share, how we support you guys in supporting kids. I'm just going to briefly talk about this before I get into the Review360. One of the things that we're seeing a lot of in the past year is this movement towards MTSS, the multi-tier systems of support. And I wanted to really just kind of make note that Review360 will lie in that behavior, in that social emotional. We know that it's difficult to provide tier levels of support. We also know it's hard to identify tier levels of need. And so obviously that's what Review360 helps you guys do. That's where it kind of fits. We like the idea of making database decisions. It's promoted throughout the country. And obviously, collecting that data through Review360 is critical when you're trying to make those decisions. And obviously, we want to increase the teacher efficacy, make teachers feel more empowered. That obviously translates into positive student outcomes. So again, I just wanted to give you a visual. We'll talk about this later as we get at the end of the session. I'm going to mention MTSS again, but I wanted to kind of show you that 360 does support the behavior and the social emotional. Okay, so what we're going to go into is we're going to talk about 4 different things, and we're going to talk about new features. We're going to talk about imports. We're going to talk about Review360 Access, and then we're going to end with the Review360 Dashboard. We're going to talk about other elements of Review360 throughout the year as we do the multiple series, and we'll talk about it at the end. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn over to Sydney Herndon. She's one of our implementation persons, program managers, and she's going to really talk to us about new features. Sydney?
Thank you, Doug, and good afternoon and good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time at this crazy time of the year to get some information about new features in Review360 and probably a little bit of a refresher on some others. And as Doug mentioned, I'm going to talk about some of the new things. Some of these things have been around a little while, and we may not have really promoted them. However, some of these are brand new. So you may have noticed that Review360 has a new website. Actually, all of Pearson has a new website, and it looks lovely, and we like it a lot. If you are in the United States, and you use the Review360 website to log in, you'll see that login to Review360 link has changed a little bit, and here it is, and we've marked it with an arrow. I'm pointing to my screen like you guys can see me. So there it is, and it's available to you. one thing that we often hear is where are the links to the training site? So if you are using the Review360 training site either with us or on your own, then there is now this resources link up at the top. It might be kind of hard to see, but there's About, Applications, and Resources up here. And if you click on Resources, there's the link to the training sites both for the U.S. and for Canada. Additionally, I wanted to point out that in this Resources tab, you have access to blogs, stories, information about customers. That's a place where we want to put information that we are hopeful will be helpful to you. So you can still get there with the pseyewearsolutions.com web address. I know that is a mouthful, and that's back from when we were Psychological Software Solutions. But our new website is meant to be cleaner and more efficient, and there's a lot of good stuff on the site. When you do click on that Login to Review360 link, you will come to the normal login page. And if you use Google as your email system of choice, like we do, there is a Login with Google link. And so that sort of becomes a single sign-on option. And I will tell you, I've gotten so used to using this that I will be very sad when it goes away for us because we're changing to a new system. But you guys who use Google, you can, and you have your Google email address in Review360, you can use that login with Google, and it gets you right in straight away. And it's so very helpful, I will tell you. So those are two kind of outward-facing, if you will, newish things in Review360. The big new thing, and I think the email went out last night, although I didn't get a copy of it, but we if it didn't go out last night, it'll probably go out tonight. But there was a welcome email or a back-to-school email that we shared because one of the biggest new features, and this is brand new, is accommodations. So you will have the opportunity to add specific accommodations to objectives and track the effectiveness on a number of different plans. So accommodations will be, or are, as of right now, are available on the academic progress plan and then our behavior plans on the SLP, or I'm sorry, not the SLP, the SST, the Student Support Team Plan, the green plan that everybody knows. And it's also on the behavior tracking plan, the blue plan, the behavioral management plan, the purple plan. So as you can see on the screenshot, on these behavior plans, you'll see that there's the student objective. Let me get my little pointer. The student objective, and then the accommodation is right below it. And you'll see over here on the right how you can track the effectiveness and use of the accommodation. So we have historically had strategies, and the strategies are used globally with the student, but the accommodations are really going to be tied to the specific objective. And actually on the academic progress plan, the gold plan, I usually say yellow, the gold plan, you can actually tie the accommodation to an objective or to a whole category. So that's really nice to see too. So the strategies are used more globally. Those will have the videos and the very specific steps and can be used for coaching. And then the accommodations can be used really to track effectiveness more closely. I'm running out of time. So the student profile page, you now have the ability to add widgets to the student profile page. And if you go on the student profile page, down at the bottom, it'll say add widgets. And you can add and remove different widgets on the student profile page. And so you can make that page really what you want. But one of the specific widgets that we wanted to talk about that is brand new, right now it's called Courses. It's eventually going to be called Classroom Assignments to be a little bit more clear as to what it is. But that widget on the student dashboard will show you what rosters that student, the teachers whose roster the student is on. There's some good English, but I think you understand what I mean. But that's available on the student profile page. And then finally, for those of you who use the BASC3 BESS, we have updated the manual. So those of you who have access to the manual, and we have mapped the items, the questions, to the sub-indexes and then the general behavior categories. That is in an appendix at the end of that manual. So that's available to you now. Maria, do you want to take over and talk about the other big new feature?
Yes, thank you, Sydney. Hello, everyone, and happy start of the school year. So with Success Ed, the integration is basically done through an API. An API makes it very easy to set up. So the way that it works is that student objective goals and summary results will be exchanged between the two systems. So once it's set up, the user will be able to see the student objective goals within the Review360 system and click a button to request to import them. That button becomes available when you create a student plan for a specific student. So it's on demand. You'll be able to do it at the moment that you're creating your student plan. Once the goals are imported and you start tracking progress monitoring, and entering sessions for your student on the plan, you start to gather the information, and then you want to see some of those results. So what happens then is that the information about the student results will travel back to Success Ed, and the way that that works is that it's also on demand. On the Success Ed side, you're going to be able to request the information for a time frame that you need, and then you'll get your summary results. So it's a very simple implementation and exchange of information. And that's really how it works. Here you'll see a couple of screenshots. You see the import Success Ed goals that I described, and then you select which ones you want to bring into the process. All right, so the next thing that I will talk about is importing for students, staff, and roster information into Review360. We guide customers in the type of import to use depending on whether you need pretty frequent import, like daily or weekly, or if you need to import less frequently, maybe a couple of times a year, maybe every semester. The other thing is to take into account is if you're able to automate the daily or weekly or pretty frequent imports. If you have an IT department that is able to automate it, then we like to use the automated batch import. That is my favorite type of import because it's very flexible in the kind of information that you can bring in. And if you are not able to automate it, but you have the ability to use other solutions like these particular third-party partners, Clever, ClassLink, PowerSchool, or OneRoster, that is another way to automate an import that needs to be imported on a daily or weekly basis. If you are needing less frequently, the best solution is going to be the UI import. And I'll give you some high-level information about the benefits of each one. The ABI import is going to allow you to, like I said, bring in a lot of the information that you need. It's very flexible. It does require your IT department or your school IT staff person to work with us to bring this in, and it can take about 2 weeks to complete. It's about the same for the third-party vendor solutions, so vendor, ClassLink, PowerSchool, OneRoster. It is an easier option for customers It can take about 2 weeks, depends on the setup, but some of the limitations may be that, for example, administrators will come in as teachers, and you'll have to manually change their user type, or in the case of Clever, you have to add them manually.
Maria, sorry, this is Sydney. Can I? Oh,
sure.
Can I just jump in real fast, real here? So, I just want to point out with the Clever, ClassLink, PowerSchool, with Clever specifically, because I know that that's a really easy import option. But if you do have students who are in special education, Clever does not send us that flag. So if that's important for your screening results or for your incident management, just be mindful of that.
Yes, that's a very good observation. Great observation, Sydney. So when we're considering the options to use, we need to take into account the data that you need, and we'll determine the type of import that you need to use. The UI import is great because you will be able to create a template that brings in all of the information that you need to bring in. It is not going to restrict you. And like Sydney's example is not being able to bring in the special ed flag, you'll be able to do that. It's just into the option if you don't have, the problem is you're not going to be able to automate that. You have to do that manually every time you need an update of roster information in the system. And it's very easy to do because you have a wizard that guides you through generating the template and creating the data that you need or importing the data that you need into it. You just have to be able to pull the data out of your student information system. And that's
Maria,
the gist of import. Yes.
I know that a lot of my districts, 360 districts, will ask me, there are some choices now, but which ones cost and which ones don't.
So all of the import options are free of charge. There is no cost, except in the case of PowerSchool, where we do have a charge for maintenance per year. And if you're setting it up for the first time specifically for exporting incidents back to your SIS, then there is a charge for that as well. But that's just in the case of discipline, not for rosters.
Okay. And I would just add with the UI or the user interface import, it is a slightly new process, and if you use that import option, you'll see that. But we have updated the videos in the training widget, so if it looks a little weird when you first log in to do your new UI import, just look at the training widget videos, and it will show the new process.
Cool. Thanks, Sydney. Thanks, Maria.
No problem.
Adam? Yeah, Adam.
Excellent. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Let's talk a little bit about Review360 Access. And so a few things we're going to talk about is the smartphone and the tablet, how you can use those, student links and parent links when you're using those types of screeners, the blank point sheets, which some people do ask us about those that are still trying to do that because they want to put some onus on the student to carry it around, and then how we can email parents and how that looks and how we do that. So the first thing will be the smartphone. So yes, it does work on a cracked smartphone, as you can see in the picture. It will come up. You can score here. You can actually screen here. You can put in incidents here. Depending on the size of your phone, it is what it is, but it has been formatted. It is a clean look at it. But also I will say I have a lot of districts right now that are doing the student reporting in a screener that are allowing the students to do it on their phone. An example would be I had a district last year, 3 times throughout the year, they had almost 4,000 screeners, and they were able to do it in less than an hour. Because all the students get out their phones, they're supposed to do the screener, and I think they give them like 5 minutes of Snapchat or whatever the kids do these days. So they're finding unique ways to use that, not only as the staff and the faculty are reporting, but also when the students are asked to do something. So it will work on a smartphone and a tablet. So those things are out there just to make things a little bit more accessible to you. That way you're not tied directly to a laptop or a desktop. You do have some flexibility with that. The next part is the blank point sheet. So when we're talking about blank point sheets, when you go into Score a Plan, we do have a button towards the top that says blank point sheet. When you click that, it will generate a point sheet that looks exactly like what is in the electronic version, which is important. We want to make sure that if they are scoring certain strategies with a certain scheme, if they're doing the objectives and they're using some type of numerical system, it's on there. Those scales are there. We don't want them just to hand in a piece of paper and you're trying to decipher what they're trying to tell you to put into the system. So we do have the blank point sheet. It will look exactly like what is on the screen if you're doing electronically. So if you are passing those papers and they're moving, that is there. But just know that, that's, of course, static. You won't see it in the system until somebody enters that in, and then it becomes more of a dynamic data point for everybody to see. But we do have the availability to do that. It's directly on the scoring page. So when you go to score a student, it's right there. You'll see blank point sheet, daily report, and summary report. They're all right next to each other. So that one is there for you.
And the accommodations will show up there as well.
Right, yeah. So you're going to have everything on there that you need. Just so we want to make sure that we're really lining things up. It's hard to get data if it doesn't look the same when you're trying to put it in. So it will be there. All the features that you need that are listed on that scoring page will be on the blank point sheet as well. We do have an email functionality. If you do incidents or if you're doing a daily report or a summary report and you want to send that, maybe you have communication logs. We did those for years when I was a teacher. Send the spiral notebook home. Parents supposed to sign it. They read how the day went. Kid brings it back. Inevitably, you never know where that notebook is. You can directly email to the guardian if they have a working email within the system. Just note that this is a one-way street. It's going to go from our system to the parent or the guardian, but they cannot reply to us. We don't have someone following that system, so it's going to go out. If you do want to send it out, you would just click on Email Guardian. You can, as you see on the right-hand side over here, you can type in your note, and it always have right there, it says send me a copy of the email. That is, by default, is checked. That is kind of your backup that it went out, that it was sent. And so then you would just send the email there. But remember, it's a one-way street. You can write in there, if you want to respond, please email me at this email. We can do that, or we do have people that do PDF and then just directly start the email correspondence from their own district email. It's completely up to you, but we do have that feature. It's really nice to communicate how everything's been going throughout the day, and you can do that at any point. I don't have a screenshot for the parent and the student links, but those of you that do screen, when you go under the administration tab when you're building your screener, remember that if you're going to have a student supply some information or a parent give you information, once you have set up the screener, on the bottom of the page you will see the two links, and they are unique to your district. They will need to know their student number in order to get in, and then it asks them to verify themselves, and they move forward. Those of you that have done it, you know what that looks like. But make sure you have those links. That way you can have it. So that is important as well. So that's some of the really kind of cool things we do. Oh, sorry, Doug. Go ahead.
No, so what are you saying is that the parent or the student, do they have to log into Review360? Is that was the purpose of the links?
No,
they don't
links
have to log
are external.
into 360.
No.
Okay.
No, sir. No, they don't have to come into the system. They are directly going through an external link that we're giving. So they don't need to have a way to get into Review360 specifically to look around at different things. They have a unique link that they click on, and when they're done, it just takes them back out to let someone else come in. So those of you that do that, if you do parents, I really hope you can get them going.
And I would just add some of the districts I work with, they've actually put those links on their intranet or some page that everybody has access to, and so it's a lot easier that the kids know, go to to this web address, click on the link, type in my ID number, and then I can complete the screener myself. So it makes it really easy.
Yeah, so that's a great idea. And I want to have districts that send emails.
Well, and I want to echo what Dr. Bauserman said about the phones. Is I'm noticing that too. Is a lot of the districts I support, they are really using that smartphone for the students, especially at the middle school, high school level, to do those. Especially the screeners. I mean, that makes it really nice to be able to capture that much at-risk data within a 5-minute period. So something to think about if you're on the phone and you're watching this and you guys are contemplating the logistics of trying to gather all that information. The smartphone could be a great tool, provided most kids will carry most kids have them. So, but also too, some of my schools will actually bring in computers for the kids too. So definitely a couple of ways to be able to do that. So, thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
So looking at the last part is really looking at the dashboard. And the whole idea of the Review360 Dashboard, obviously when you log in, the very first thing you're going to see is this dashboard of information, which I'll show you here in a second. But what I wanted to talk about is some of the districts that have been using Review360 for 10 plus years have gotten really good about, using the tools to obviously make it a lot more efficient and a lot more effective in supporting kids. So I'm going to talk a little bit about account preferences, what that can, do for, administrators, psychologists, social workers, behavior interventionists, anybody that really supports. And then I'll talk briefly about the saved reports, just that ability to be able to basically generate some customized reports. And then using the widgets, on the dashboard, for tracking purposes. Again, if we're trying to create a database decision-making type of culture, then what we want to do is really find tools that allow us to really pull that data. And again, we're trying to push as much information as we can so that you guys don't really have to pull it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is account preferences. So when you go into your dashboard, the top right, this one says Training Administrator, but it would say your name. There is a link that a lot of people don't know of, and it's basically account preferences. So when you click it, you'll see account preferences. When you click account preferences, you'll get this screenshot to the right. And what that allows you to do is a couple of things. Number one, it will allow you to uncheck or check whether you want to receive incidents or any kinds of data. Some administrators do not want to be inundated with email, so they'll uncheck it. That's what that looks like right here. You can uncheck these boxes. The other thing is looking at the email schedule. You guys can actually set up saved reports and put them on a schedule. You can see monthly, every week, every day, every 2 weeks. So imagine this, Mr. Johnson or Mrs. Johnson at the school, and they get this email every Friday that pushes behavioral data that they really want to see. Maybe they want to see it by grade, by ethnicity, by behavior, and they can actually have that automatically sent to them every day, every week, every month. That makes it a really nice when you're, again, it's a lot easier to look at that data. But sometimes we don't want the emails. We want to be able to look just at the dashboard. So that's, again, what we want to think about is as we look at this dashboard, that will tell us the same information whether we get the email or not. And what it allows us to do is we can actually create our own reporting groups. So this one is hard to see, but you can see where it says A through H. So there's some of our administrators actually create their own reporting group. They only want to see data on students whose last name is A through H. We also have some people who are in student services or special ed that this one says students in reach. So again, we have special programs. So I can create a reporting group, and then every time I'm on my dashboard, I can pull up on this little cog wheel And I could say, I only want to see students in my students in reach group, or my students in special ed, or my students that are tier 2. So you guys can create lots of unique kinds of groups, put those in your coding on the account preferences, and then your dashboard becomes a very strategic and unique database portal, okay? And then the next one would be Save Reports. So as you guys work through your reports, you can see right here is I want to know everything that goes on in 5th grade. I know as a teacher, a lot of times what happens is you'll see that teachers will talk about the 4th grade or the 8th grade or this 10th grade group is really tough. They need a lot more support. So maybe as an administrator or an interventionist, I want to see very specific information on the 5th grade. So I create a Save Report, very easy to do that in Review360, and I can push that on the dashboard. So you can see is as you start to populate, some people will use the dashboard for one specific thing, but again, it really has a lot of benefit when you start to really make it these widgets very strategic to what you guys are trying to support. So again, that Save Report, you can save any report in here. So at people that have been using it, when you go to the analysis part and start generating these reports, you can start putting those on your dashboard, okay? And then when we do that, again, you can see that if I'm looking at this as an administrator, as a school psychologist, social worker, behavior interventionist, MTSS coordinator, behavior, whatever it is, you can see right now I can quickly see just by looking at this dashboard, I can see the kids that are on Tier 1, Tier 2, and Special Ed. So I can honestly see in my whole spectrum, just by looking through the Spotlight widget, who those kids are. I can look at the incidents, which I'll talk about in a second. I can look at who's doing the courses. So I want to promote social emotional learning. I want to promote positive behavior intervention and support. I want to promote positive strategies for working with aggressive students. I can actually have a widget, again, to not only have access to that information, but administrators can actually track these courses. I can see the universal screeners data. So you can see just by this one glance, all the information that we're able to push this information so you guys can really, again, make that database decision-making process so much easier, especially when we look at in-class incidents. So right here as an administrator, I can see teacher-managed incidents, I can see office referral incidents, and I can see pending task. And pending task is I have to assign a consequence. So again, while we're tracking the very things that are happening at our school or different classrooms, this also allows us, again, to make sure that we're organized and be able to assign those consequences. And administrators that have been using this for a while love to go and just keep that dashboard open, and they simply go to their laptop or their tablet or their computer and simply just quickly glance at these widgets that populate in real time so that they're privy to everything that's going on in the school. So they need to know, do I need to walk down to the classroom and provide support? Do I need to send an email? Do I need to tag one of the interventionists? So again, just push all that strategic information, and our administrators love to make those, to look at that and make those decisions. And again, the Spotlight widget, again, is that this is a behavior management plan, which is our students in special education. Here's our student support team plan, which is our Tier 3. So again, as you guys start to look and really kind of increase the usage of Review360, be very mindful of what you can do with the dashboard. And remember is that you can move these widgets around. You can hide some of these widgets. So we really like the idea that people have used this for a while and are able to create a dashboard that is unique to their needs. And I'm gonna stop there because what I want to do is I want to ask Adam, Sydney, or Maria, do you have anything to add to about the dashboard?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Doug. I have some customers that say, my recent in-class, you can see, why is that widget so much smaller than my courses widget? Can I make it bigger? I know I can move them around, but can I make those bigger?
Yes, you can. That's a I get that question too. And really all you simply do is there's going to be a little line back here at the bottom, and you can just simply just have that thing grow, and you can make it as big as you want. Or you can make it as wide as you want.
Yeah, I see a lot of that too. And I would also add too, with that cog icon, you can indicate the number of kids or the number of items you want to be able to see in that widget as well. So that will give you some flexibility. Oh, there he is right there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. There it is.
Yeah. I think it's list size?
Yeah, I think that's it, yeah.
Yeah, list size, yeah. And Sydney, that's a great point, because I do have some people call me and say, hey, Doug, I'm only seeing A through G, and I tell them, well, I bet your list size is maybe set at 50. So sometimes bigger districts, you can set that list size. I think is it 999? Does it go beyond 999?
Honestly, I haven't experimented with that. Is it? Yeah.
Yeah. But it should get you a lot more than what you had before. So just know that if you're not seeing that all the kids, just go to that list size and that cogwheel, like Sydney was saying, and change that list size to a broader group. Okay? Anything else on the dashboard, guys?
Just one about the reporting groups. Just know that there are two different kinds. We have, filtered, and we have ad hoc. And just filtered, think of letter, if you're A through F, like Doug was saying, A through L in the alphabet, or maybe you're just 6th grade administrator or just a freshman administrator. You can set those, or you can do an ad hoc where you can just go maybe pick your 15 kids that you're watching. So there is some variance that you can do.
Yep. That's a good point. Good. Okay. Well, we're obviously going to lead a little question, but before we do, we just want to mention is, like I said, the four of us, we really wanted to, make it concise. These webinars, we're going to be talking about more functionality. We'll be talking about the universal screener. We'll be talking about incident management. We're going to talk about progress monitoring. We're going to talk about ending plans and continuing plans, and we're going to talk about analysis. So the next webinars, again, we just really want to be strategic about, how to use these things in order to increase the implementation, because we know from our experience is, obviously the more you go in and use the dashboard, the easier it is to access those particular functionality. We know that it does increase implementation, especially sometimes we've heard complaints about, hey, we got an old import. And so when Maria's talking about an automated import, we can actually do nightly imports, so you're not having to worry about that. So a lot of our districts will migrate over to more of an automated process in importing, and they find that people are not calling and emailing and saying, hey, I can't get in, because it's updated so regularly. So we're just trying to think of things that, challenges that we've had in the past. That's really why we wanted to present this information. And like I said, our next one will be on October 8th. And we're going to really focus on just a few different elements. If you want to know what those are, we can look at the session and so on and so forth. And then I wanted to remind everybody that, we are trying to tie Review360 with that upcoming, with the MTSS. So we really want to expand and help districts, because we're getting a lot of calls about districts wanting to know, what is multi-tier systems of support? How do behavior and social emotional academics fit in all of that? How does Review360 support that? So we're going to be talking about that. If you're interested in trying to incorporate MTSS and you want to see how 360, or just in general how to build those multi-tier systems, we're going to talk about that as well, and we'll have that first session coming up on August 20th. Okay? Before I open to questions and we'll start looking at the chat line, I just wanted to look at and just say, any one of the four of us can talk about 360, and if we don't know the answer, we have other team members that obviously can. So if you're interested, and again, if you have a very specific school question or district question about 360, any one of us four would be happy to answer that. You just have to email us and that question. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and start looking at the chat line and see if there is any questions that we can answer, and we'll go from there.
I can read them, Doug, so everybody can hear them.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So someone's asking, I'm a teacher. Can I see the yearly history of one of my students, or is it only the administrator who can do this?
Yes, you can. And look at it like this. Think of, we just used the term dashboard. You know, you're looking at your own administrator dashboard. What I always like to say is that we have student dashboards. And so if you actually click into the student name, and wherever you see the student name and click in, you're actually going to see a student dashboard. And once you open up to that student dashboard, Sydney, did you have a screenshot of that?
I do, yes. I can see if I can find it.
Yeah, find that, because that to me, if you're looking at, so here's a student dashboard. So here's Gina, and I'm able to see the historical plan data. I'm able to see all the incident data, and like, Sydney was saying, the new features of being able to look at, class assignments, who they're attached to, and so on. So the answer is yes. What you guys need to do, is that we get this question a lot, is I don't have permissions to do blank. So just know that tag your Review360 coordinator. We do this all the time, and say, I'm limited on what I can see. Can I update my user type so that I can see that information? And we can always change that, provided the 360 coordinator, they're allowing that. But you can see from the student dashboard that you're going to see all this individual information. It has a summary, and so on and so forth. So I hope that answered your question. That's a great question.
Yep. Let's hear. Wondering if you have some sort of at-a-glance information sheet about the widgets and what they do. And I can take that one. We don't specifically. Most of them are. Most of the widgets are pretty self-explanatory. To be honest, the titles are pretty good. I think our development guys have done a pretty good job about labeling what they do. In your training widget, however, on your dashboard, you will have a, let's get back to that. You will have, and it's an unfortunate name, I know, it just sort of stuck a long time ago. There is what's called a generic QRC document right there, and everybody should have access to that. And that just generally gives you some information about the dashboard. And also, depending on what feature you're talking about, whatever widget you were talking about on the dashboard, there's probably there's a video in your training widget as well that will talk to you and talk to you about tell you what that's about. Is it possible to review previous webinars? And I went and found this link, and I'm going to share it with everybody. So this link will take you to, that just popped in the chat, that's the Pearson Assessments webinars. There's upcoming and also past webinars, so you can go there and view those. So that's for that one. When the student objectives are input, can these be unique typed in for a set of students with the same risk behavior? So can the objectives be unique?
Yes. So I'm understanding is, can we customize the objectives? You think that's the question, Sydney?
I think so, but also I think a little bit, possibly yes, but also can you have a unique set of objectives as well? So remember, we haven't done this in a long time, but we used to allow people to, give us their objectives.
Gotcha. Yeah. So when you go in and you are choosing from that taxonomy, that behavioral list, we like to think that list represents behavior. We have on, like Sydney said in the past, been able to maybe accommodate. That's always a difficult question about making sure that we're providing a list that represents your school or district. But that's always a conversation we can have. And honestly, when you guys think about those things, think about the idea of, is this something that is going to lead to a greater support for our students, or is this something of, well, this would be nice to have? So sometimes we'll look at it that way. Is sometimes you need that uniqueness, and we try to accommodate. And sometimes you might need it, but we're just unable. So I would just say that if you do have something that's critical, please push that to any one of us, and we'd be happy to push that forward to development and see if we can get that passed through. But, it's a fight for us too. We love fighting for you guys, but we definitely know that we have latitude on uniqueness, but we're just not sure what we can and can't do. So.
Great. This is more of, think of an import kind of question. So what import, I'll kind of change it a little bit, what import would be better equipped to handle personnel hired by the system for short periods of time? So what import might be best for that?
Maria?
I can take that. So that I would probably the UI import, or the actually just the UI import really. If the personnel that you're hiring that is not in your student information system, then it's not going to come through if you're doing an automated import through the nightly process with the ADI option or the third-party vendor option. So I would recommend adding them either manually if you don't have single sign-on, which won't allow you to add people manually, or using the UI import.
Cool.
We're doing okay on time. Okay, on the accommodations page, can accommodations be collected by period or by daily counts only? And I can answer that. Yes, accommodations can be collected by period.
Cool.
Let's see here. What does ad hoc stand for when you're making an ad hoc reporting group?
I guess I'll take that one since I brought it up. Ad hoc really means, like for a particular purpose. So those are ones that you're going to go pick specifically. So there's not going to be, it's going to be one by one, where the other ones you can do kind of mass groupings either by alpha, so any combination of alpha, or any combination of grade. So ad hoc will be you pick specific kids one at a time. So it's kind of tough to make an ad hoc. You can do it of 100 kids. It'll take you a while. You have to go find all the 100. So really kind of think of, do I do alpha? Do I do by grade or a combination of those two? Or do I just need specific kids who are kind of everywhere throughout the building?
And remember, once you create that ad hoc list, let's say you have 8 students, every time you go into the dashboard and you click that cog wheel, you can pull up that ad hoc group. So some of my people who support, these kids with a lot of needs, is they like to go in and just, click that cog wheel, pull up that ad hoc list, and only see the 8 kids and all their data. Because sometimes they don't want to see all the data. So that was the whole point of being able to do reporting groups and that account preferences, so that in those widgets you're able to kind of change the group of the data you want to review. So that can be really helpful.
This is a great question that just came in. When creating a plan and selecting strategies, there are short videos available. Is there another way to access these videos that explain strategies without having to go through the create plan route? and I can answer that. Yes, there is. We a couple of years ago, we actually pulled the strategies out of the plans, and we built a little course around them. So there is a course, and now, of course, I'm going to draw a blank. There's a course for students with hyperactivity, impulsivity. There's a little course about aggression, and within that little course, you will see the strategies that are used to help support those students with that behavior. So check with one of us who helps support your district, and we will make sure that you have access to that course.
Awesome.
Let's see here. Oh, please provide more insight on purging previous year's data to get ready for the upcoming school year.
I can take that. In Review360, we don't purge it in the sense of removing it permanently, but what we do is the data becomes automatically part of the previous year based on the configuration we have in place for your district calendar. So when your current calendar ends, the data becomes tied to that year, and you are not able to see that data anymore depending on your permission. So one of the great things about Review360 is how configurable your user types are, and if we define user types that do not allow staff to see previous years, then they will not see it. And everyone has different needs, and so it just depends on the settings that your district decided they want in place for you.
And I would just maybe add to that, your import is also going to clean up data from import to import and year to year, because if a student is left off of an import, a subsequent import after your initial, then those students are going to be unregistered and all of their data archived. And the same kind of thing with the adults. So if you leave an adult, a user, off of a subsequent import, then they're going to be made inactive. So that just by doing a new import will also clean up a lot for your upcoming school year. So I hope that helps. This is actually about Success Ed. So Maria, you might be able to answer this, but we may have to answer this offline. By law, a report for IEP goals and objectives must be sent home to parents or guardians. Currently, it requires me to run a report in Review360 and then manually transfer the data to Success Ed. Is it my understanding that now this data from Review360 will be exported directly into Success Ed?
Yes. The results are transported over to Success Ed in a summary form. So we don't have access to Success Ed to see what that looks like, but my understanding is that it is you're able to, on demand at the moment that you need it, indicate the date range you need it for, and you get the report automatically imported from that particular demand, the moment that you need it.
Someone just asked, what is Success Ed for our non-special ed attendees?
Yes, Success Ed is one of our it's an IEP system. Yeah, it's one of the vendors we partner with.
Sorry, I was replying to something real fast. A couple of our questions are very, very specific to different user accounts. So some of them may not be may not be applicable to everybody. This is again about kind of imports and adding people. A newly assigned employee, how do we get those people into the system?
So if you're using import, the automated import, then just adding them to your student information system and flagging them in your system with the setting that they need to import into Review360. Some systems require that you mark them as the user that imports into Review360 when you're creating the account. Then it'll automatically happen. You don't have to do anything. It'll automatically add them. It'll bring them. It'll tie them to rosters if they have a roster.
I've also had this question where what happens when an employee who's part of the district now becomes a contract person? Are they still able to access 360?
If they are removed from the SIS system, then the answer is no. But if they stay in the system with their existing email address, then yes, they will continue to access.
So it sounds like maybe it would depend on the district and how they handled whether they're going to be officially part of the district or not. That's what I'm thinking.
Yes, I have a district like that.
Yeah.
We work with the district to get permission to allow them to still come in as an outside person.
Yeah, I have had that too, where just the contract people need access to the data, and so the district, develop that confidential relationship or set it up where they're able to access that information. So that makes sense. Okay.
Well, we have 2 minutes left. Do we want one more question?
Do we have any?
Take one more.
There's one question that might be helpful, and I think we can answer it. Oh, sorry, Maria. Did you want to say something?
I see a question about ESPED collaboration with Review360. At this time, there isn't a collaboration. We want to discuss these options, and so part of what we'd like to do is you can reach out to us to talk about possible solutions for that. We can look at an integration possibility for the future. Of course, we need ESPED to work with us on that, or we can look at importing via a more traditional template, but that is something that would require for it to be kind of like a project and plan for it. So that's an option to consider future IEP goal imports via more of a traditional import. It just needs to be something that we talk about ahead of time and go through the process of getting it set up within our planning for work that we do.
Great. It looks like there's a few questions that we didn't get to answer because we're running out of time, but we do get a report of all these questions, and so we'll divvy them up between our customers, and we'll make sure we get those answered.
Cool. Well, thank you, guys. Thank you, Dr. Bauserman, Sydney, Maria. Thank you, Sherry, for facilitating. And thank you guys for taking the time to really kind of just hear how we can kind of increase and improve the Review360 implementation. Like I said, we're going to do this again, except we're going to be talking about different parts and different features for the next one. So just look at the session description, the emails that we got, and we hope to see you again. But like Sydney said, if you have a specific question that we didn't answer or you need to answer it now, please feel free to email us, and we'd be happy to respond. Any of us will, take a question from anybody. It just kind of depends. So that's all I have. You got anybody else have anything?
Nope. I just want to say good luck to everybody. Have a great year.
All right. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Sherry.